Welcome to day number 9 of a screenwriter's journey. Looks like we're we're picking back, we're picking back up. We're picking up back. Anyways, right where we left off, I'm revisiting this scene where we left off yesterday talking about the idea of would they call their parents? If they did, what would they tell them? So I'm just, as I frequently do when I start a new day, I almost, dare I say it, unless I purposely left off in the middle of a scene because I knew how it was going to end, but I didn't have time. I almost never leave off in the middle of a scene and then just keep on writing, or end a scene and keep on writing. I almost always go back and rework the last scene I was on. Sometimes I go way back because, again, I've thought of stuff and I go back and change things. So it looks like I just went back and reworked the beginning of that scene a little bit. Okay, so now, yeah, we get into this. Gary has tried to make, maybe not on purpose, but maybe so, get Holly feeling bad, and so now Holly is turning the tables on him. And I, again, having written this 30 days plus ago, I need to kind of think about what's this version, which is my basically rough draft first version. A lot of looking, gazing, regarding, shifting, focusing on, glancing. Never tire of writing those words. I wish, there was just one standard thing you could give. Because obviously, if you're on the set and it says Gary gazes at Holly versus glances versus looks versus peers versus shoots her a look, how different is the actor and or the director going to read those? And what does that reveal about the story? Obviously, if you glance at someone, it's, a quick glance. You can't slowly glance at someone. I don't think you can. As opposed to gaze, you turn to them. So I guess I found over the years of writing and then having directed 3 of my own scripts, plus a bunch of shorts, is that in the, in the long run, those words, those verbs, they don't make any difference. Really, when you're writing it, they do, because if someone else is reading it, they'll go, "Oh, okay, I get it, I understand." But when you're on the set, you're not going to go, "All right, no, don't gaze at them, glance at them," because you'll have either had a table read or the actor will have talked to you or something like that. So, but it's crazy how in a spec script, I will spend so much time just parsing words, not only to get the right word, but maybe also so the word doesn't go to the next line, which is kind of silly. But as I've said, I like to make my scripts look as good as possible, which means no orphan words. Okay, so let's see here. And hopefully, as I mentioned on the previous days, that you are reading this while you are listening to me, so you better than I can follow what's going on. So we go right from one Holly scene to the next. A sliver of dread. I'm just reading that previous scene. So Holly is not super confident about what's going on here. What is the answer no to? Paul stands at the entrance. Holly turns off. The answer is no. You either assigned her to keep me and Gary safe. You either, oh, I'm not, I have to be totally honest. I don't know what the answer is no, unless Abby has already asked her and she's answering what is going to be the new question or the new statement that we hear Abby give to Paul. Okay, so now we're getting a little more information, and I as I mentioned previously, the FBI has been known to work with the U.S. Marshals in various operations, and so this, I believe, could be considered legitimate. And so that's kind of what this scene is about. Belief. There we go. It should be believe. See if I'll catch that or not. I am still here. Rachel McQuaid. I think that's the first time I mentioned her last name, and that is the name of a childhood friend, which I occasionally do pull out of nowhere. I don't think anyone else in here is named after a childhood friend. So now when Holly says involving Lexi, obviously Abby and Gary are not going to be, well, they're going to be shocked. They're not going to be happy. They're going to start being fearful and like, what the heck, man? And of course, Holly did not know about this when they first came up there. So one question is, once one character discovers something and the audience discovers it in the process, does the movie have to explain that again to a different set of characters? And if so, under what circumstances should that happen? And I guess to me, it would have to be you're learning something that you didn't know before. You want to see those characters' reactions because that is going to maybe drive the story in a different direction. Or maybe those characters have information that once hearing the news, they can put a different spin on things. They can turn, if it's an investigation or a manhunt or whatever, they can turn it in a new direction. Certainly you wouldn't, and hopefully I'm not doing this here, you would not just repeat information so new people can hear it, because that's kind of like saying, and then you talk about something that the character already knows, because if they do know it, the audience doesn't need to know it. But even if they don't know it and the audience already does know it, the characters may need to know it, but the audience doesn't need to know it in the sense that we don't need to waste screen time on it. So that could be they're having a conversation that we don't have to hear, but we hear as a result. They now know the information. Anyways, back to the story. So you want to go home. I didn't say that. Whatever's going to happen won't be here. Besides, you can't legally force. That's a good point, Abby. As I said, sort of the sensible peacemaker one. Gary, a little bit more of the hothead. Rachel's character, Lexi, I meant to say. Hopefully people are getting a sense of who she is. And hopefully, more than anything, they're getting a sense of who Holly is. It'd also be interesting to know, pardon my yawn, how much of dialogue, how often really writers come up with an original line of dialogue. Like, knock yourselves out, obviously been said a million times. And so is that a cliche or not really? Is it just functional dialogue? I don't know. It's a very interesting question that occurs to me from time to time. Obviously, you don't want to purposely steal lines like I did with that airplane line unless you've got a reason to. Although right now I'm thinking of another line that I stole that is not in the script yet. But I would say, unless, it's a parody or you're doing it on purpose, obviously reusing dialogue or speaking in cliches, even if it's not dialogue from a movie, if it's just cliches you hear in real life, not the ideal situation unless, again, it reveals something about the character or you just have to do it. If anything changes, you hear. So right at this point, you can see I'm writing and rewriting this, trying to figure out where, basically, I'm trying to set up logistics. Where do I want Gary and Abby? Because if they're just sitting in a cabin and Holly leaves to go somewhere, what fun is that? Unless it ends up that all the action takes place here unknowingly, and then they find themselves in the thick of it. But I don't think that's going to happen. I just have a hunch that they're going to go somewhere else, or at least the story is. All right. Okay, so Holly's reassuring them that, they're doing everything they can. Holly wants to know who they can talk to in the FBI. Paul doesn't really give her an answer. But now they've set up this kind of ad hoc, as I wrote, ad hoc command post. And I just sort of pictured like a folding table or maybe a desk, and there's 3 laptops set up. Because you've got to have at least 3 laptops these days. You can't just have one. If my voice sounds a little different, it's because I'm recording this a couple weeks later, because I just found what appears to be the second part of my day 9 file. I must have recorded it later in the day. So what I'm doing here is I realize that Paul has to be the person who was with Holly in the beginning. So I'm going back and fixing all of that. I have no clear. It's funny. You write and you rewrite and you rewrite, and then you've got your normal job and everything else. And so when I go back, this is kind of like all fresh to me. It's like, what genius wrote this? Literally. Not literally. So I'm making sure that I think I've got all of Paul's stuff right. And that appears to be a little bit I did. And next up, guess what? Day 10. See ya. Bye.